Okay, we're going to call the meeting to order, and we're going to do roll call. Andrew?
Chairman Johnson,
Here.
Vivian Pickard,
Here.
Nicole Cover, Dave Lamontagne, present, Don Bailey.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Just a quick reminder, we have on here, it's called public comment reminder, and that is if you do wish to address the board, you should get one of these cards. Some of the people here have, and please fill that out. After we get through some of the other parts of the agenda, we'll be going to public comment at number 5. With that, we need a motion for approval of the agenda.
So moved to approve.
Is there support?
Support.
It's been moved and supported to approve the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Agenda is approved. Okay, we're going to go to the Attorney General for some presentations. And I'm not sure who's up first, but
My name is Tom Guasarano from the State Operations Division of the Attorney General's Department, and I wish to thank the board for this opportunity to share with you and with our public participants here Michigan's 2 transparency statutes. There's a number of statutes that talk about open government. These 2, the Freedom of Information Act and the Open Meetings Act, are probably 2 of the, they're all equally important, but 2 of the better known statutes dealing with it. There are many reasons why we have these 2 statutes. I can go back 160 years ago and quote from someone who told us why he anticipated one day that we would have statutes such as this. Knowledge will forever govern ignorance, and the people who mean to be their own governors must arm themselves with the power which knowledge gives. So said James Madison way back then, one of the fathers of the Constitution. He said the advancement and diffusion of knowledge is the only guardian of true liberty. Our legislature back in 1976, recognizing this, passed these 2 statutes, because before these statutes, the only assurance of open government in the state was a series of Court of Appeals and Supreme Court decisions, but now the statutes have codified the people's right to know. So I'm going to go just do an overview of first the FOIA and then the Open Meetings Act. The core purpose of this statute is very eloquently written. It's very reflective. It is a public policy of this state that all persons are entitled to full and complete information regarding the affairs of government and the official acts of those who represent them as public officials and public employees. Why? So that we can fully participate in the democratic process. So that's very clear here that this is a very clean tie-in to the First Amendment, freedoms of speech and press. We have the right to speak, but before we speak, we need to acquire information so that when we speak, we do so intelligently, knowingly, and hopefully factually. And it assures freedom of the press, who disseminates that information knowingly and intelligently and hopefully factually, but the press, the 4th estate of government. So those 2 freedoms depend very squarely on these 2 statutes. Now, in the definition of public body, there are over 10,000 public bodies in the executive branch of government, state, county, and local, that are subject to the Freedom of Information Act and the Open Meetings Act. It talks about a public record. A public record is a writing prepared, owned, used, in the possession of, or retained by a public body in the performance of an official function. So any and all writings, either in physical form, electronically, prepared by any employee or official in any of those levels of the executive branch of government, are public records subject to both of these statutes, with the strong presumption that the public has a right to all of those records, copies of those records. So a writing is defined very broadly in the Freedom of Information Act, and it's anything that is capable of being recorded in a meaningful way. That includes electronic mail, for example, email. It tells us about 2 parties that are very important for the function of FOIA, and that is the requester who has the right to inspect, copy, or receive copies of records, and the public body. And the public body, again, those bodies subject to the act within the executive branch of government. And really, when you talk about a requester, who's the requester? It's the world at large. Anything that goes out from an executive body to a requester essentially has gone out to the entire world. Because no public body can place conditions on whether the requester can have it or not. No promises can be made that the requester won't show it to someone else. Once it's out, it's disclosed to the world at large, as it should be, because, again, here the presumption is it's the people's records. There is a fee section where a public body may, through the legislature's permission, recoup actual costs to process the request. Whose costs? The taxpayer's costs, because those are taxpayer dollars involved. The response to a request is very simply put. You grant the request, or if you deny it, the public body must give a very detailed explanation why that record or part of a record is being denied to the requester. Or you can grant in part, deny in part. Many records have both exempt and non-exempt material. There are remedies. You can't have a right if you don't have a remedy to enforce that right. And the remedies are very strong under the FOIA. If you prevail against the public body that a court determined wrongfully denied a record in full or in part, you're entitled to attorney fees, costs, damages, etc. Why? Because the legislature wants the people to be private prosecutors, to keep pushing forward that this information is the people's information and must be disseminated accordingly. There are exemptions to disclosure. So if it's a pro-disclosure statute, it seems weird to hear that something could be exempt. But that's only because we have competing yet equally important and compelling rights. The right to know is the right that permeates FOIA and the Open Meetings Act. That's it, the right to know. But what about right to privacy? So for example, if government happens to have personal information on citizens, as it may, dealing with tax records and the like, the public body may withhold that information so that there's a balance between the right to know and the right to privacy. Now, in terms of the Open Meetings Act, I'll move to that here. That act is very similar. Again, the idea is to promote openness in government. Where FOIA is talking about paper or information in electronic or paper form, the Open Meetings Act is dealing with what's going on here right now. That any decisions made by a public body subject to that Open Meetings Act, those decisions are made. Those deliberations occur in the presence of the people. And so the people can observe it. They can comment on it. They're informed. That's why it's not unusual that the press will attend open meetings of public bodies. So again, it can be reported to the people who didn't have an opportunity to attend the meeting. So again, the basic intent of the OMA is to promote government accountability and transparency. There are, again, over 10,000 public bodies in Michigan in the executive branch of government that are subject to the Open Meetings Act. Doesn't include the courts, certainly includes the legislature. But the courts have their own rules in terms of the people's right to attend court hearings. There are public notice requirements. How did you know about the meeting unless there's a notice that told all of you that there's a meeting here today commencing at 1:30? Those notices must be posted in ways determined by the legislature, spelled out in the Open Meetings Act. There must be minutes kept of this meeting. You couldn't attend the meeting, you can ask for the minutes of that meeting under the Open Meetings Act. Once you ask for it in writing, you've also made a FOIA request, but you're entitled to copies of those minutes. As with the FOIA, there are certain records that may be withheld from the public under the FOIA. There are certain meetings of a public body that may be conducted in a closed session, which is contrary to the word open meeting. But the reason for those closed sessions are very limited, but the legislature, we the people, have decided that certain types of sessions should be closed when dealing with certain areas of law. Again, all that's spelled out in the Open Meetings Act. If you go to the Attorney General's website, and I'll give a plug here, www.michigan.gov/AG, you can go and find both of these statutes, handbooks on both of these statutes, explanations, etc. And again, it's there for all of us that need to know about these things. As with the FOIA, there's penalties if there's a violation of the Open Meetings Act. Unlike the FOIA, which is a civil right that a person can pursue, the legislature has warned us that among civil remedies under OMA, there's also criminal penalties under the Open Meetings Act for alleged violation, specific intent that could be proved that a public body or a member of a public body specifically intended to avoid the act. It's very rare, but again, the legislature has placed that remedy in there to bring the attention to all public bodies subject to the act. This is very serious business, and business, again, that must be always for the people's right to know. If a public body, however, has been charged either civilly or criminally with a wrongdoing, the legislature shows some consideration here because it says that a public body may reenact a disputed decision, and this time doing it correctly without any admission of liability. Why is that? Because really at the heart of all this is the people's business, our business, must be kept going forward and not to be tied up in courts. So again, the rights are there, the remedies are there, but the overarching purpose of these statutes is to keep the people's business moving forward. So that's my quick overview. And if there are no questions, I will again thank you all and turn this over to my colleague.
Any questions of Tom from the board? Thank you, Tom.
You're very welcome.
Good afternoon. I'm Erica Marzarati, Assistant Attorney General, and I'm here to discuss a very specific issue related to what Mr. Quazzarano discussed, this one on ex parte communications. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to the board today. I'm also going to give a very high-level overview of the issue and just give you a general sense of what the statute here requires in this area. As Mr. Quazzarano indicated, the Open Meetings Act requires that deliberations and decisions of a board, such as this board, take place at a meeting open to the public. Again, the purpose behind this is openness, transparency, and accountability. For this reason, it's important that board members avoid ex parte communications. Those are communications that occur with outside parties, outside the public meeting, about matters that are before or may come before the board. The Medical Marijuana Facility Licensing Act strictly prohibits such communications. The Act specifically prohibits any ex parte communications between a board member and a licensee or an applicant or the affiliate or representative of a licensee or applicant. So that's a very broad prohibition on communications between the board and outside public members. The Act requires that a board member, licensee, or applicant, or again the affiliate or representative of such an individual, who receives or is aware of any ex parte communications or an attempted ex parte communication, to immediately report the details of that communication in writing to the board chairperson. The Act also requires that any board member who receives an ex parte communication that is an attempt to influence that person's decision report that source and content of the communication to the board chairperson. The chairman may then investigate or request the assistance of the state police and/or Attorney General's office to determine whether a violation of the Michigan Medical Marijuana Facility Licensing Act occurred or whether there's a violation of another state law due to the communication. The disclosure and any investigation that occurs under the Act are confidential. The chairperson, following an investigation, shall advise the governor, the board, or both of the results of any investigation and may recommend action as appropriate, depending on the circumstances. If the chairperson receives an ex parte communication that again is an attempt to influence his decision-making, the chairperson shall report that to the governor's office for any appropriate action. Like with the Open Meetings Act, the Michigan Medical Marijuana Facilities Licensing Act sets forth penalties for any communications that are in violation of the act. These are on top of any Open Meetings Act penalties, as Mr. Quazzarano discussed. The Facilities Licensing Act states that the board may deny an application, revoke or suspend a license, or take any other disciplinary action deemed appropriate against a licensee or applicant who engages in ex parte communications with the board or whose affiliate or representative does so. Further, a prohibited ex parte communication by a board member may constitute cause for removal from the board or other disciplinary action that the board deems appropriate. That summarizes my overview of ex parte communications. If you have any specific questions following this meeting, you can direct those, board members may direct those to Mr. Briscoe, and members of the public can email any questions you may have to the general LARA Michigan Medical Marijuana email address that was provided earlier. Thank you.
Any questions? Thanks, Erica. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to number 5, public comment. We have several cards that's been turned in, and first one to address the board. And are we going to have them at the microphone, Andrew?
Yes, I'll bring a microphone down. If we could get a motion from the board that dictates the time frame for public comment, please.
I would hope we can keep it within 3 minutes for each individual.
Best.
So moved or support? Okay, it's been moved and supported to keep comments to 3 minutes. All in favor of that, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. While he's getting that, the first person up is Eric Gunnels. Is that correct?
Yes.
And he's with the community of the, is it Thetford Township?
Yes, Thetford Township.
Thetford?
And I'm an elected trustee of my township. With all due respect, I'd like to pass on my opportunity to speak this moment. I think there's a lot of other folks here that possibly would have the opportunity to have, and I think most of my questions can be answered by these other folks. Thank you.
We appreciate that.
Mr. Chairman, I'll have a timer that will go off at the 3 minutes for anyone that wants to speak, so they'll be aware when their time is up.
I'm going to apologize beforehand if I mispronounce any names, because I probably will before this is done. So, next is John Kronkeck. Am I saying that right, John? From the Michigan Prevention Association.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. Michigan Prevention Association is an organization of professionals and volunteers that are concerned about the health and safety of our children, our communities, our families, etc. And I'd like to thank the board here for stepping up and doing this. This is no easy task, so I appreciate your diligence in that. I'm not going to read the entire statement. I've provided a written statement that you can have for your records. But basically, we wanted to offer Michigan Prevention Association resources and expertise if you help the cause at all. Right? And in the written piece, we identified 4 primary concerns: the unchecked levels of THC, marketing appeal to children, the economic challenges that this type of system may provide, and access to youth. This is also supported by the Montcalm County Prevention Collaborative, this statement. So it's all there, so I'll let you that. So thank you again for stepping up to do this.
You handed in, it says page 1 of 2, but we don't have any 2s on the back. Oh, that's a good use of paper. Thank you, sir. What I'm going to do is call 2 names. First one will speak next, And then the second one, if they can get in line to kind of keep this moving, so then I'll call another one when the second person steps up. And this name I'll be able to pronounce very well. Brant Johnson. And he's from the Johnson and Associates, I believe. Brant, are you here?
Yeah.
And Amy Lohrhoff will be next. I apologize, Amy, if I got your name wrong.
Good afternoon, and thanks for giving me an opportunity to just kind of ask a couple of questions. My name is Brant Johnson, and I represent a couple of business people in the medical marijuana environment. And I was looking over some of the bios for the people selected to the that were appointed members, and as looking over it, I see that you guys are competent and have good resumes and have good intentions. However, 3 of the members represent the Republicans, 2 of the members represent independents. There are no representatives for the Democrats. So how can the public have confidence that in the application process you all will be impartial and fair? And the second question is, will the applications be reviewed and submitted anonymously by like a number, and then you review the application not by the person's name? I know you'll have to do some background checks, some security checks. However, will they be submitted anonymously? So those are my 2 questions.
Andrew, do you handle that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One general announcement, my apologies, we should have made this before, that the public comment period is an opportunity to address the board. It's not so much a Q&A session. So if you have some concerns or issues you want to bring to the board's attention, feel free. If you have specific questions, you can send those to the email address and we can respond to those in due time. But in order to give everyone an opportunity to speak, we want to make sure that we keep things moving along.
Thank you so much.
If need be, we can provide that. The email address is laura-medicalmarijuana@michigan.gov with an H in marijuana.
Thank
That
you.
causes confusion.
Mr. Johnson, what was your second question?
The first question was, can the public be...
Got that one.
The second question is, will the applications be submitted anonymously?
Okay. That we can't answer, but he will get that to you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming. Sue Bond will be after Amy. You're good?
Mine was a question.
Okay. And after Sue would be Rachel, I believe this is an A, Arnoff.
Mr. Chair, can I make one more announcement while she approaches?
Sure.
I just also wanted to mention, we do have a number of folks that are waiting in the lobby because the room is at capacity. So if anyone's had an opportunity and is willing and could leave the room, we can allow other individuals to enter when someone else leaves. So staff are out now collecting the comment cards, but we do have a number of folks out in the lobby that wanted to come in and address the board as well.
There's a room next time, maybe.
Okay, Sue, you're with the Relief Hub, is that correct?
I am. My name's Sue Bond. I'm a paralegal out of Grand Rapids, Michigan, and I've started the Relief Hub, and I won't go into any of the details of what we do and how we do it. But I do have a comment I want to make. Back in 2015, the Laura moved the marijuana program over to the Department of Health, right? Am I correct?
I don't know that answer.
There was a department move at that time, that period of time, and I was wondering if that's going to happen again with all these new laws coming out, if there will be another shift in the department, or who oversees and supervises.
Yeah, go ahead, Andrew, if you...
As I said, if you have specific questions, you can email them to us. I don't want to set the precedent to start the back and forth with answering questions.
Oh, okay. Can I waive my minutes?
Sure. Thomas Wright. And Allison
about we start a precedent by asking the question, we get a little information. If the next meeting is October 12th, is that the next meeting? Is that an answer we can get today?
Answers, I'm not getting any answers. These are all questions we all hear and answers from.
At least let us know is the next meeting of this board not till October 12th.
We're going to address that as soon as we're done with the public comment.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Thomas, you're with the Michigan Total Healing Center.
Yes. Just a real quick comment. I was hoping the board does specify whether they're going to allow multiple locations like an extraction, a grow, and say a dispensary or provisioning center, all at the same location, not necessarily in the same building, but say you have 5 acres with multiple buildings that would suit each location. That way, stuff isn't traveling on the road unnecessarily, essentially. That's all I was wondering. Thank you.
We'll get that to you. Allison Arton, is that correct? Christine Norman will be next. Go ahead, Allison.
Hi, I'm Allison Ireton. I'm an attorney in Ann Arbor, and I just represent some people who are currently operating in the space and are looking forward to getting into this economy. I'll phrase my questions as comments, and I would encourage everyone else who came with a question to do that so we can at least give our questions in the form of a comment to the board. The first one is a lot of the township meetings that I've gone to, the townships are very confused about whether they're supposed to wait for guidance from you first about what they want to see. So they're holding off on writing their ordinances. So I would encourage this board to please come up with some guidance for the second thing I'd like to add, the second comment that I have is I would encourage the board to really understand, this is not my first go around with lawmaking. I was a healthcare law attorney with MAPS back in 2007 and 2008, and a lot of times these laws get written by people who don't understand the economics and the patients. So I would encourage you to understand that some people who are operating dispensaries are there just, quasi drug dealing operations, and some of them are true medical facilities that are treating patients who, if you cut off their supply prior to giving out licenses, they are not going to know where to get RSO, they're not going to know where to get capsules, they're not going to be able to have different strains to try to medicate their particular condition, and you're going to leave a lot of patients and a lot of dispensaries who are really serving these patients' medical needs with just out any other options. So I would encourage you to get to know some patients, get to know where they're shopping, and just like they did in Oregon, if a currently operating dispensary applies to this board for a license, that they somehow get a stay to keep operating as a medical dispensary to their patients, while this whole transition is going over. Because, the reason we have the system we have now is that it took forever for this state to settle on a scheme that would allow dispensaries to exist in the first place. So we all share some culpability for having illegally operating dispensaries in our state. So thank you.
Allison, that was very good, and we appreciate that, because understand this is the first meeting of the board, and we've had very limited conversations, hardly none. So to the other people that want to talk, that's the kind of information we really need. So we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Christine, and then W. Thomas Hamlin, I'm not sure which would be next. Go ahead, Christine.
Essentially, I was coming from the same area as far as the municipalities are completely reluctant to move forward in taking the time to write ordinances that then may be changed with rules and regulations from you. I personally told them I don't see anything in the paperwork that is going to occur, but they don't believe me. So they want to wait till the last minute, and I can't apply for anything until I have a municipality on board. My other comment is it's not clear at all in the paperwork with what you consider seed to sale with tracking. It would be hard to track a seed because not all seeds are viable. So it's a question. I'm trying to make a comment. Are we going to do this? A comment, how is it from clones, from seed? Once it's got roots, it gets tagged. I guess it's not clarified in any of the rules that I've been able to find. Thank you.
I appreciate that. After Thomas is Chad Morrill.
Board and Chairman Johnson, thank you for taking my comments today. This is a personal note as a citizen of the state. And I'd like to begin my comments with a brief review of medical marijuana's history. First of all, marijuana is a Schedule I drug with no medical benefits. 2, growing, transporting, storing, or selling marijuana is a felony. 3, profits generated from an illegal enterprise, such as number 2, cannot be legally deposited into any United States financial institution. Number 3, physicians cannot prescribe marijuana to a patient without losing their medical license. So why are we here today? We're here today because of a selective enforcement of existing laws and a 2008 citizen initiative allowing marijuana to relieve pain and suffering for terminally ill patients. But the citizens of Michigan were duped by devious elements of the criminal underworld whose sole agenda was to create a thin veneer of respectability to protect their drug cartels. Now, to continue the charade, we are discussing the creation of boards and other entities to regulate an illegal enterprise. If the board is created, it should be directly accountable as much as possible to the citizens who voted for the initiative in 2008. Therefore, any such board should be exclusively populated with elected officials who are directly accountable to the voters of the governmental unit wherein the medical marijuana enterprise operates. That could be state, county, township, city, or village. Each level of government should be represented with elected officials. All meetings of the board should be governed by existing open meeting acts and appropriate statutes. This will be required until more effective political leadership evolves, along with stronger enforcement of existing criminal laws. It would be logical to incorporate the functions of this prospective boards now and in the future into existing public venues to include but not limited to city, state, county commission, etc., regularly scheduled meetings. Further, by incorporating medical marijuana official business into regular public meetings, the corrupting influence of money will be minimized. In closing, it would be my hope that another citizen initiative will reverse the damage done to the public and restore the rule of law to our fair state and put an end to evil imaginations. Now, for all the lawyers here today, Attorney General Sessions is going to hire several hundreds of new assistant attorney generals across the country to help with this situation, particularly for special cities like Lansing. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Kathleen Graham will be after Chad. Chad, you don't have down who you're with, but that's okay.
I'm actually, my name is Chad Morrow. I'm representing the group of medical marijuana dispensaries from northern Michigan, particularly in the Otsego County area.
Thank you.
I got a couple notes here I just wanted to jot down. And well, for one thing, it all curtails what the gentleman was saying earlier about transparency and openness in government. And my biggest concern with the board and the rules and everything that are coming forth is not necessarily with the rules, but with why they're being created, who they're being created by, and is it in the best interest of caregivers and patients in the state of Michigan, or is it in the best interest of a personal agenda of somebody? So basically what I'm getting at is, you know, I've unfortunately, as a dispensary owner and activist, had a numerous fair share of run-ins with Mr. Don Bailey myself. In these run-ins, we've had numerous conversations, and he's stated a lot of things to me that are contrary to the beliefs of anybody who would be doing anything in the proactive, beneficial manner of medical cannabis. I've got footage of him on my phone over 30 minutes long, where just some of the things stated are, I am biased against marijuana. I don't see the difference in marijuana and medical marijuana. Marijuana is just a drug to get people high. Marijuana today is so different, it's dangerous. The dabs, they're dangerous too. That's something totally different. Anything over 20% in THC isn't medicine, it's recreation. They're engineering CBDs out of marijuana and the THC up just to get people high. He's a witness in multiple medical marijuana cases. That to me seems like a conflict of interest. He stated to me personally that no one person in Michigan operating a dispensary will get a license, and that's all he's concerned with. He's submitting letters to courts claiming that I, myself, and others are dangerous people trying to subdue our freedom of speech. In my community, we unelected our prosecutor when he raided us. We then petitioned and passed zoning for dispensaries. The entire community supports us. That man raided us shortly after and took me to jail. He's our board member.
Wrong. That's wrong. That's wrong. Baby's biased.
Let's keep the comments respectable, please. That does not help the end game. Kathleen Graham is up, and Don Kuschmeider is on deck.
Hello, I'm Kathleen Graham. I appreciate the time that you've allowed me to speak. I'm a certified hospice palliative care registered nurse, and for the past several years I have taken care of patients, usually in their home, traveling throughout the state of Michigan. In this time, I cared for patients that chose to use this legally as they were certified. There's currently over 250,000 legal patients in our state, and when they come to us, we as medical professionals need a few things, and that's what I am requesting, that you look at the other states and you see what they have on their labels, what they require. I would like to see an active ingredient list with a full microbiological analysis done so that we know what our patients are taking. There are different strains out there that work better for one disease process than another. It is important for us as medical professionals to know the difference in those strains. I would also like some kind of milligram limit like the other states have. They have 10 milligrams per piece of candy up to 100 milligram candy bar that you can purchase. I think that's a really good limit. They also have increased limits for medical patients up to 100 milligram squares. So I would like for you guys to get the input of medical professionals and see what we need taking care of patients that come into the medical professional world that use this. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Don is a Kuschmeider, am I saying it right? Representing Best Cadillac Provisions. Jacob Butler will be next.
Mine with the questions on the past.
Okay.
I'm here to express my...
One second, Don. Courtney Short will be next. Okay, Don, sorry about that.
That's all right, sir. I'm here to express my displeasure with Governor Snyder's selection to the board of Sergeant Bailey. I believe he's way biased. He's admitted he's biased. He's been at the center of the medical marijuana provisioning center controversy for years now. Seems to be at all the raids. He was at, he arrested Chad, he arrested me. He's at everybody's raids. He's got everything to say about medical marijuana and how we're abusing it. It's recreational. It's just drug abuse. We have fellow warriors like Steve Sanderson, Keith Olson, Chad Morrow, myself, Al Witt, a few others. Chad found his address on the internet because he comes and he puts our stuff, comes right to my place, parks on the grass, he assaults me with his deadly weapon. I'm suing the guy right now. Chad said, let's go protest Sergeant Bailey's house. So I went over there and found his neighborhood, and I posted a picture on the internet, and he went berserk like I was stalking his family and I was harassing him. Mr. Elmore, following the announcement of my retirement from the Michigan State Police and the governor having appointed me to the Medical Marijuana Facilities Licensing Board, within the Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs, many of the local dispensary owners have become very agitated. As you know, Chad Morrow is currently a defendant in violating the law by distributing marijuana in Otsego County, and Don Koschmeider is facing the same charges with you in Westford County. Both are prior felons and face enhancements based on their criminal past. As always, they have taken their displeasure to the internet. The attached images show where defendant Morrow posted my address and is rallying support to get people to come to my house in the effort to intimidate. The second image taken from defendant Koschmeider posted, seeing a picture of my subdivision, noting that he's feeling disgusted. Koschmeider and others had also posted to Morrow's comments saying that they were ready to come to my house, harass, and attempt to intimidate me. I never said that. Peaceful protest is all I'm about. I've alerted the neighborhood and who these people are and what they're doing. Understandably, many of them are terribly upset. You didn't need to do that. Please let me know if there's something that can be done to assist assuring the safety of my family and my neighbors. Given the nature and the facts surrounding the Morrow and Koshmeider's criminal convictions, I'm not convinced that harassment and intimidation is their only intent. Thank you. Don Bailey, 231-215-800-8022. I'm not anything but a peaceful protester, and I'm sick, way up to here, with all the tyranny and the criminal racketeering that's happened against patients and caregivers. This is a total takeover of the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act. Ron Bogie, Clint Kesto, Michael Calton, all of them. They're all involved. I hope they're all indicted. You make me sick.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Courtney Short and Rick Thompson will be next.
Hi there.
You, Rick. We do have some empty seats up front, too, for about 6, looks like. Maybe we'll choose. I'm sorry. 5. Go ahead, sorry.
So, again, I'm going to try to phrase my question as a comment. We have a soil hydroponics and indoor gardening supply store. We've had that for 3 years. We do medical marijuana certifications every other week. We recently had our bank account closed, and it's because we wrote checks to the state of Michigan's medical marijuana program. On the back of the checks, it's stated right on there, J.P. Morgan Chase. That's the bank that cashes these checks. And it says medical marijuana program, Laura, state of Michigan on there. Currently, as someone else has stated, there are no banks in the state of Michigan that will deal with any companies that have anything to do with medical marijuana. And it's our concern that when it comes time to, send in funds to the state of Michigan for the licensing, that we're going to be flagged right there and then, and our accounts are going to be closed. So a huge concern on how we're going to handle the banking and financing aspect of all of this. Appreciate your time and your efforts to make this program effective.
Thank you. Well done, Rick. Lynn Miller will be next.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for allowing us the opportunity to comment. I will say that I enjoyed the James Madison summarization of knowledge is power in the Attorney General's presentation where they said people should be private prosecutors and deliberation should be made in public. The format of this particular meeting seems awkward to that purpose. There's no dialogue, there's no interaction. It's a unidirectional comment period as opposed to getting some kind of meaningful information delivered to the public. Through what venue will this council speak to the public and answer these questions? Certainly not on an individual basis. I mean, we ask questions as a group, even though I'm here standing at the microphone. It is the group behind me that's asking the question. And if the answer comes directly to me just in an email, all these people suffer for the lack of knowledge. And we just talked about knowledge as power. The suppression of knowledge is the absence of power. As medical marijuana patients and business persons existing in the state already, we are feeling powerless in this particular program. Even more so when we hear about potential bias on the part of board members. In the future, there should be a different format, one that allows for an interrogative, one that allows for interaction, that gives us an opportunity to ask questions and receive answers. Because upon that basis of understanding, your understanding of our industry will improve. As we get dialogue going, you will have a better idea of what we're going through, of what we need, of what our requirements are of you. Secondarily, I'm concerned in regards to the appointment of the 17-member Administrative Rules Panel. That was supposed to happen 3 months after the act was rolled out on December 20th, and we still have not seen that. It's 3 months late. Typically, administrative rules, then applications, then people fill out applications, then we get a committee to approve those applications. Here we have the committee to approve the applications before we even have the rules being developed. It seems like this is an awkward set of procedures. And the general public needs to have an idea of what's going on, both from the gubernatorial level and from this particular group's level as well. And the last point I'd like to make, as a representative of the patient population, is that you may find some of us are very emotional about this particular subject. We may raise our voices, we may tear up a little bit. Please understand that that's not disrespect towards you at all. That's just a representation of the seriousness of the nature of the issue that is before you. Literally, people's health lie in the confines of the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act. And should you decide to approve or deny health care providers that are outlined in the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act, you could negatively affect the health consequences of thousands of people if you don't have a dialogue with us, if we don't have an opportunity to interact and tell you about that. Ex parte communication is crucial. You can't do that, as we heard earlier. So that means these opportunities are even more important than ever before. Since you can't dialogue with individuals away from these formats, where else are you going to be able to get this info except from us in this dialogue? I understand that's my time. Thank you very much.
Lynn Miller.
Mr. Chairman, with all respect, if I may ask for a point of privilege, I was the first individual you called upon to speak. I waived that temporarily, but I have the opportunity after this next individual.
What was your name again?
Eric Gunnels.
Yeah, we'll let you do that.
Thank you.
You'll be next. Then Lynn Miller will be after Eric. Eric, you want to? No, you're up, sir. Sir? No, the gentleman in front of you there. It's a woman. I'm sorry. Is it Courtney? No, wait. Lynn Miller. All right.
I'm here as a caregiver. I certainly have a network of caregiver friends, and we help each other. And hopefully, our mission is going to help people. One of the concerns that we have is we'd like to know how this law is going to help people who are just working with patients and looking to, make this more of their livelihood. We don't want to be shut out. We want to be able to find a way within the law so that we can also be some small business owners who don't have to have large deposits to be able to afford a license. And these are the people who have been working within the system for the past 5 or 6, or since 2008. So we're the people who really have worked on our quality of our product and trying to get testing and trying to help those who really need the help. That's a very big concern. We don't want to be shut out. We want to be a part of this. We want to know what the costs of the licenses will be. And we're also very interested in the transportation, what the fees are going to be for that, how that's going to be working. Are there going to be limits on the transportation? How much are there going to be limits on charges for the transportation so that cultivators and dispensaries don't end up paying such large fees that no one can keep a sustainable business? That's my concern, and many of the people that I know and work with and within my network, they're very concerned about how we, the people who have done this since the very beginning and been able to help people, how we're going to be able to stay afloat and be able to continue the mission that we have.
Okay, thank you. After Eric will be Kathy Biggins, and Eric, you're with a township, Thetford?
Yes, I'm the township trustee of my community of Thetford Township. Let's not invite any of the business owners because we already have enough dispensaries. We don't need any more. Thank you. But just as a response here to this meeting, yes, we as elected officials, we do need as much information to make decisions on these issues as possible. One of the things that I wanted to make sure is that we have a future, contact of dialect possibly between the roles of the state and the local elected officials. Make sure that we have an understanding of how you intend to proceed and give us timelines. Obviously, you have other boards and so forth and other minor details of this act to fulfill. Then I would also ask that possibly when you include other issues of if you amend this act or if you change any policy, that you include an opportunity for the local community to have privilege of being there. The residents of that community should have an opportunity to have a business before outside businesses are allowed to come in or be licensed to the state. So I would hope that a provision of some kind like that would be included in the future dialect. If you are in fact able to change the rules slightly or any of the policies. So just look forward to working with you and keep an open dialect for this, and we'll try to move this along. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Kathy, with NCIA, is that correct? Next will be James McGilly. Is that right? Am I saying that right? Floor's yours.
I know that the next meeting really isn't scheduled until October, but I'm hoping that you'll put another one on so we can have more open dialogue. I believe that the state of Michigan is behind where it said it was supposed to be as far as organizing the leadership and people who are being governed over this. I would like to see more clarity between the caregivers and the dispensaries and how that's going to go. I have a lot of people asking me questions. I'm an accounting and tax person, and a lot of people asking questions about what that's going to look like. Banking is another really huge issue. We're finding it hard to find any banks that will work with these kind of companies. The pesticide control regulations, I know there's a lot of question about that and needs more clarity on what that's going to look like. Licensing fees and dollars, I've read a lot of what the licensing fees are going to be established on, and it just is very ambiguous as to what that's going to look like in dollars. I've heard everything from tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands for some of these fees, so I think we need to see more clarity of that quickly. So, but we do look forward to working with you guys and hope we can get to a better understanding of all sides of the fence.
Thank you, Kathy. James? After James will be Stephen Monti. James is representing himself.
Good afternoon. I'm just hoping for some clarity maybe. In Public Act 281 it says that the sale or transfer of...
Speak into the microphone, please.
The sale or transfer of 1% of an interest in a license without prior written board approval would be grounds for revocation or suspension. And then slightly further on in section 409 it says that sale or transfer, attempted sale or transfer of an interest would be grounds for potential revocation or sanction. So I'm just wondering if you get some clarity. Are sales of up to 1% in the license permitted with or without prior written board approval?
Okay. Thanks. That's good to know. Stephen? And then I believe it's Neveman.
Right. I'll try to keep this short. I know there's a lot of public comment. This might have already said, so I apologize if this is redundant, but people outside might not know what comments have been made. I'm concerned that when the line is opened for applications, that you guys are going to be hit with so much volume that there's going to immediately be a huge queue. And what I would like to see is some transparency involving that line. So one person or entity doesn't have the first 15 applications, so to speak. Furthermore, I'd like to see, I don't think this is within your reach, but I think some sort of reparations for cannabis felons or former felons to not only say what you've done was right and you were in the right, but you should be put towards the front of that line. And we've seen a lot of people whose whole lives and livelihoods have been destroyed while they were trying to help people, and they are also some of the most experienced people in this industry, so to scoot them to the back of the line on top of having falsely punished them is just salt on the wound. So I think some sort of affirmative action program to help with reparations towards cannabis felons would be nice, but at the very least, I really feel we need transparency in the list, as there's going to be possibly hundreds of people waiting saying, when am I going to be heard, or how long is this process going to take? And so I would just urge you as a panel to always keep transparency in the forefront of your thoughts. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Nice. Next will be Lawrence Muhammad and Kevin Jones. Is that Lee?
Nice Newman.
Nice Newman.
Mr. Chairman, we may have some folks who submitted cards that haven't made it inside yet.
All right, we'll leave that one and we'll check later. What about Lawrence Muhammad and Kevin Jones.
Jeanette Leary.
Jeanette Larry. I think Angela Shively. Andrew, would it be possible for someone to relay that out there so these people can get in to speak? I haven't gotten through all of it. This one didn't answer. Jason Matlock, you're up.
Good afternoon, and thank you to the board for the time to speak. My name is Jason Matlock. I am representing Grand Crew LLC, which is a startup company interested in pursuing a license. I am posed to be the chief of operations for that startup, and as such, I've been concerned with how the technical aspects of our business would interact with existing laws. I have a master's degree in horticulture, and I'm a doctoral candidate in organic pest management. So I spent a lot of time talking to farmers, and as a result, I've also found myself communicating with rural township members and their boards and planning commissions. And there's been a lot of questions about how cannabis production will interact with existing regulations for agriculture. And I think this is something really important to consider that has not really been thoroughly addressed in the legislation. If we think about it, our country has had an ongoing historical legacy for regulating farming and for providing very clear rules about how farmers operate. And while cannabis in its first iteration in this industry, as it's becoming legalized, may be largely confined to indoor environments, very quickly it's going to become something that has to be performed using traditional agricultural methods because of the fact that this product will ultimately become commodified. Prices are going to drop. We've seen that in other markets, and the only way to stay competitive in a business is to move forward and increase efficiencies in your productions. And that means taking on larger areas and reducing overhead. And paying for electricity inside of a building is not something that's going to be sustainable. So if we look forward at the future of this industry, if we can actually get it off the ground, ultimately people will have to turn to solutions that make them farmers. And we need to think about how that is going to be handled. Do people who farm cannabis have the right to farm? How do they interact with the Farm Bill and the various rules underneath that? How does MDARD influence what they do? Somebody mentioned pesticides. What are my rules? What are my GLMs? What are these labs testing for? There are a lot of very specific regulations that need to be clarified into how they interact with cannabis and cannabis farmers. And I think that we should recognize that cannabis production is farming. And the more that we push cannabis production into that arena, recognize the people that are doing it, provide them with the benefits of being a farmer, along with the responsibilities of being a steward of the land and somebody who's responsible for protecting the environment. Because let's be real, these operations can have a profound impact on land use and on a community through affecting watershed, through applying chemicals that are regulated and labeled for a reason. So I would encourage both the board members and the audience to think about that as we move forward.
Thank you. I have two cards. Tom, Lavigne. Are you here, Tom? And then Ann Cisco, I believe, are from the same Cannabis Council PLC law firm. Maybe outside. W. Hoffman.
Mr. Hoffman? That's me.
Maybe that is an MR. I'm sorry.
You know more about cannabis than right now.
This guy is done.
Okay, thank you for taking the time to see me. My name is Mr. Matt Hoffman. I represent the National Cannabis Industrial Association. which is the largest lobbying organization in the cannabis industry. I just want to come forward and make a statement that as we roll out this new industry and this new program, we need to think about setting aside maybe special licenses to allow facilities to open and be able to train local workforces to come up to speed in order to have a smooth rollout of these new businesses. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Jonathan Carlson.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Muhammad would like to speak. I was going to take the mic to him.
Oh, sure.
Test. Hello, and thank you for taking my comment. My name is Lawrence Muhammad. I'm with the City of Detroit, one of the plan reviewers and building inspectors. I've been handling the applications for medical marijuana caregiver centers in Detroit, keeping track of them and doing enforcement with regards to them. We have a number of concerns, and I know that you all can't take all of our concerns right now, but there is a big concern that we have that we would at least like to articulate in terms of what the status of the existing medical marijuana caregiver centers are that are in our application process. We've got about over 100 of them in the application process. We have completed 5 applications and have for licenses from the City of Detroit. What our concern is that we want to make sure that we can do a smooth transition from what we've been doing in terms of allowing our caregiver centers to operate to what then would be expected of these caregiver centers, those that have made their application and gotten their licenses, as well as the others that are still in process of getting their licenses. There appears to be some type of concerns or comments that we've been hearing in the rumors as far as we're concerned that there may be a shutdown of some of the sites in our community. I don't know about the rest of the state, but we would like to at some point get some feedback with regards to that so that we can then adequately prepare our applicants and our licensees for whatever those transitions might be. If they're going to have to, at some point in time, if there's a hiatus in order for things to get caught up, we would just need to know what those kinds of parameters are for us. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate that. And I don't want you to think we're ignoring you, okay? We are taking all this in. And thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Jonathan Carlson. David Dodson. D-O-D-S-O-N. Thank you. Diane Ferguson. You're Diane? Yep. Yes, please.
Hello, my name is Diane Ferguson. I would like to come here and make a comment that I do believe that federal agents are not allowed to have medical marijuana cards. And so today I have brought with me my copy and your copy of some of my court transcripts of Officer Maxey admitting on the stand, who is a federal agent, that he has cancer and a medical marijuana card while possessing a gun and being a federal agent. He didn't say this just once, he said it multiple times. May I approach you with copies of these transcripts?
If you give them to Andrew, and they'll make sure we get them.
Okay, there is one from the preliminary exam and one from the evidentiary hearing.
Okay.
It's not the whole transcript, because I didn't feel you needed the whole entire thing. I would have needed a suitcase to bring you everything. Also, today I would like to present my FOIA request, my Freedom of Information. I'd Along with that, a waiver of suspension and fees because I am indigent. I used to work a pretty damn good job and make good money, but the state has made me a felon and I can no longer drive over the road nor get a job. So the paperwork in here I think is all that you need. If there's something missing, my phone number is on here. Do you only want one Freedom of Information ad, or do you want 2 copies? Also, my Freedom of Information Act is on anything that Laura may have with his name on it, Joe Maxey or John Maxey. His name is John Maxey, but he goes by Joe alias. And that is about all I have to say for a comment. I thank you for your time.
We thank you. Matt, is it Brady? Braces. Sorry.
Hi, my name is Matt Brazos. I'm from South Haven, Michigan. I'm a cured patient, so I no longer use cannabis. But I'm a very strong proponent for it because it does work. I have spinal stenosis, had 3 major spinal surgeries. Last one worked great, so I can rock and roll today with you. One of the severe problems that we have on the west side of the state right now is that either sheriff's offices or district attorney's offices are going about and having meetings with the individual townships and telling the townships a bunch of bad things about cannabis. And they're not even accurate. We should have some say in what our district attorneys are doing out there. And we should have some say in how they treat something they really don't understand. Okay? And that's the main point I'd like to make today. Right? We need some reins put on people that don't understand. And that's all I have.
Okay, we appreciate that. Matthew Abel. Matthew? Jeffrey, is it Hawk? Hanks?
Hey, here, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're Jeffrey?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. First of all, thank all you here. This is a historic opportunity you have here today. And really, with all of this in general, and a lot of people are going to give you a lot of grief. They already have. So I want to thank you for your public service. It's important to remember that. It's important to remember what this opportunity is for you, and it's encouraging so many people today. Look how many people came here. When I walked in, there was probably a couple hundred people behind me trying to get into this meeting. So you've heard about transparency today. One of the things we really got to know, and this is a question we would like answered, if the next meeting is not until October 12th, as everyone said, everybody needs guidance. So I'm an attorney. I have multiple clients who would like to submit medical marijuana applications with you. If I don't tell people what's going to happen for a few months, I'm going to get fired. So we got to get some answers from you guys. Townships need answers from them. Seriously, one of the things, day one, when these applications come in, I'm going to play with my lawyer stuff here. Hey, if I got 2 clients who need to file an application on day one, there has to be a process, a transparent process. Maybe everybody on day one who files is, picked out of a lot. There's got to be an order, right? Because if it's at 8:01 and we have people camping out and fighting like it's Black Friday and stuff, it's going to be crazy. I don't know, but there's going to be hundreds of people applying. So a smooth, transparent process that's very open to the public. If it's October before the next meeting, it's critical that this information starts coming out. Maybe some of this has to come from the advisory board. But all these people here, I want to say, I probably speak for most people in here, just about everybody wants you to start working all day, every day to get some sensible rules figured out. So, everything's figured out, tomorrow. Tomorrow. Right? We want you to do it right. sensible and be practical and be reasonable and think about this as an opportunity. In a couple of years, we probably will have legalized marijuana. People feel differently about that. But think about how you are setting some of this parameter for not only medical marijuana, but probably legal marijuana. It's coming. Look at most of these states that have done it. So one of the things that would help maybe coming out of this today, first let us know if there's another board meeting coming. I think that's something we should know. If not, in those 3 months or so, what's going to do? Is it the Laura website that's going to say this, the rules, and we know all these things, but we really do need some feedback. So to somehow get that, so everybody leaves here today with some answers where we go forward would be really, really helpful. And particularly, again, we're trying to advise, if you're trying to advise townships even as attorneys, we say, how are we going to do this application thing? We really start to have to know. So I know you have a lot on your hands, but you have a lot of people who care. There's hundreds of people waiting just to get in this meeting today. You can bet there's probably hundreds of other people looking to invest in this industry and make things happen. They're all going to be coming at you really quick. So October doesn't leave a lot of time between December, when hopefully this will take off. A lot of these things, this isn't all rocket science. Like, I live in Lansing area here. We have dozens of dispensaries. They operate for the most part fine. There's always a few bad apples, but you don't need to reinvent the wheel. We just need a sensible licensing process. The more important rules come with those testings and consumer health. And I know I'm done, but you do need to really consider consumer safety, consumer health, these vaporizer pens made in China, things like that. We really do need prudent thinking on those kind of rules. When it comes to the business stuff, most people in here are smart people. They're ready to go. You're a professional. They are. So let's work together. I want to thank you again for your
Two things. Number one, when it says public comment, that would also include us sitting up here. Number two, I have no contact number here for you, Jeffrey. So if if there is a board member before October, we won't know how to get a hold of you.
Thank you, sir.
Do we have people here with cards, I assume? Okay, great. Is Matthew Abel here?
Yes, sir.
You're up.
Good afternoon. My name is Matthew Abel. I am the Executive Director of Michigan NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. I'm also the Senior Partner at the law firm of Cannabis Counsel, PLC. I work full-time in this area. I'm on the board of the State Bar of Michigan Marijuana Law Section. I'm also on the board of the National Cannabis Bar Association. First of all, this room is too small. I didn't hear any other comments earlier, so I don't know what's already been said, but I knew the room would be overflowing. It would have been overflowing perhaps even if it was a larger room. There were people in line who left. There were a lot of people who were not able to hear anything that was said today, and so this should at least have some closed-circuit TV or some live streaming, but if it's a public meeting, it should be open to the public, not put in a room that'll only hold 150 people. We have more than 150 clients ourselves. And I'm sorry, I apologize if I'm being redundant about comments of which already have been made, because I don't know what was been made because it wasn't in the room. I believe that you should allow co-location of licensees where an agricultural piece of property or an industrial piece of property could host growing, processing, and retail altogether if the municipality approves it. I believe you should allow ownership, vertically integrated ownership, where one company or individual would be able to own growing, processing, and retail licenses. I have a question. I know you're not answering questions, but it appears that a person can apply to a municipality where the municipality does not yet have an ordinance. If I apply to a municipality, I give the municipality a copy of my application within 10 days, the municipality then has 90 days on which to provide a copy of that ordinance to the state of Michigan. I believe the legislature wrote that period to be that 90-day length in order to allow a municipality to adopt an ordinance. Otherwise, if it was already where they'd have to have already had an ordinance, there's no reason to allow them any more than 5 or 10 days to provide a copy of their ordinance. And so I'm hopeful that the applications will allow people to apply not only in places which have passed ordinances, but in other places which have not. I'm curious as to whether the assessment, we know the assessment for a 500 plant grow cannot be more than $10,000. Will 1,000 plant grow then be 20,000, or will it be 50,000? Will a 1,500 plant grow then be 30,000, or will it be 100,000? How much will a dispensary license cost? Is it going to be more or less than any of those grows? How about a processing license? Is that going to be more or less than any of those? And we haven't even touched on labs and transporters. I think there probably will be very, very few transporters. I was hopeful that we would have a draft of the rules. We know that Lara has been raising questions for months. They've sent 3 questionnaires. We were hoping that they would have a draft of the rules regarding lab testing, co-location of entities, initial supply, and things like that, because it's hard to comment on something when we haven't seen the whole design of it. I think waiting to have another board meeting until October is way too long, that we should have proposed rules here in 30 days, that there should be another meeting in 30 days, that there should be another meeting soon to discuss these rules, that there are a lot of people who have their whole lives invested in this, and there are a lot of people who are...
Mr. Chair, that was time. I don't know if you heard that. I'm sorry.
I'll wrap. There are a lot of people who are right on the edge, who are about to make investments in Michigan, but who are afraid to do so because they don't know how the rules are going to be written. Again, I'm Matthew Abel. Thank you all very much.
David Dodson.
Hello, everybody. I just wanted to voice my support for allowing multiple licenses in the same location and vertically integrated businesses to hold those. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Jonathan Carlson.
I can't say anything really that the lawyer didn't say. I agree with everything. I know it's going to be really hard moving forward in Michigan, but recreational probably will eventually happen. And this state is so close to so many other states that are against it, like New York and Chicago and huge cities in Canada. They're going to flood into the state with tourism money. So it's not only good for everybody in this room, it's good for every other business that functions on the tourism that Michigan provides. I mean, that is I would say a lot of our economy. Now that GM's gone, Ford's closed a lot, Dodge, and that's it. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Is that Tom and Ann over here?
I'm Thomas Levine with Cannabis Counsel Law Firm. Yes, I would encourage you to pass rules that reflect this community in the proper light. The state has taken too much of a law enforcement approach. I'm hoping we're at a transition here. This could really help the economy here in Michigan because we do have reciprocity. So a patient from California could vacation here, and it could be a great boost to our economy as well as boosting jobs. I would encourage the board to adopt rules that allow more than one license within the same facility and to not require the secure transport in that instance. These are serious business people and seriously ill patients, and they need to be accommodated to have the safe access that they need to their medicine, and it needs to come out of the dark ages of persecution. So we're hoping that the rules reflect this step forward. The nation is definitely moving in the right direction. It's indeed upside down, and I think this could help flip some of your perspectives when you think about the Hippocratic Oath to do no harm. Well, then why do they start with Oxycontin? And why is marijuana the drug of last resort when this, you cannot die from it? And Oxycontin is the opioid crisis of today. And the dealers out on the street, they then move them from Oxy onto heroin. So this is another crisis that this can really help a great deal in. There's a Detroit News article just today on that topic. Legalize marijuana to fight the opioid crisis. So please have this in your lens as you're making these rules. We need to plant as much marijuana as we can at this point to help with these patients. Perhaps the grow licenses should come first so that there's inventory for the stores. That's another consideration, just to maybe get the grows rolling early so that the processors and the provisioning centers have some product and inventory soon enough. Thank you very much. Congratulations on your appointment. Look forward to it.
Thanks, Tom. Ann, do you want to speak too?
Sure.
You're with the same law firm, is that correct?
That's correct. I'm with Cannabis Council, and I echo everything that my partners have said. I think that what's going to be really important as well is if you can flesh out the application rules so that they can, our clients can get better prepared. How much capitalization, what's the regulatory assessment fee going to be, matters of that sort. And also, I would like to indicate that I believe most people in here hope that you give quite a bit of weight to the advisory board because they are people that know what's going on. And we hope you give their comments as much weight as you do to law enforcement. So that's basically all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. That completes the cards. Okay, we do have 3 that haven't answered. Nice Nevman. Angela Shively. You're up. And what do you think that was?
Leary. Jeanette Leary.
Is it Jeanette Larry? Jeanette Larry? What's your mother?
Yeah,
Okay.
she needed to step out to get some fresh air.
Okay.
My name's Angela Shively. Thank you for letting me come here to speak, and I think it's great that all these people were able to come in. I know you guys didn't have enough room for everyone, but as many that can get in here is pretty important. The reason I came here today is for my husband, Cody Shively. He is a retired Air Force combat veteran who is interested in the growing advisory panel, the grower's position for the advisory panel. And he's also interested in getting a future grower's license. One of the biggest things that has really frustrated him is there's no information, and we have a small farm, and we want to do this. We're zoned as agricultural. The provisions and everything that are required, he falls into. And on our end, as far as investments, you know, we have a farm, we're a family. We're not a corporation. We don't have lawyers, you know, behind us. We want to make an investment for our family. And just coming to you as a resident of Ingham County who's not some big name or anything, we're humans, just the little people, to just let you know that we're here and we're waiting, and we're anxious to get this started and move forward with it. So that's all.
Thank you, Angela. Does your mother want to speak?
It was getting too hot.
Okay. The only one I have left is Nice Nevman, and not here. Anyone else has a card that I didn't call? Okay. Colin McDougall, patients and caregivers.
Yeah, I'm a patient and I have a caregiver, and I'm concerned about also like caregivers being able to work at some of these grow ops, because they're like the most specialized people in Michigan who know about the plant. Also, I want to talk to you guys for briefly a moment about CB1 and CB2 receptors. Those are part of the endocannabinoid system. And there's multiple different types of cannabinoids. You're most familiar with THC and CBD. And I know that some somebody earlier kind of made a comment about THC levels being like really high and stuff like that, but different THC levels and different strains of like marijuana don't really always coincide with like what type of like what it's going to do to you. Like higher THC levels aren't always going to give you like a higher effect than others. There's just different types of strains, and different strains do different things to the body. But yeah, I'd like to just tell you guys to learn more about this system and how it plays a vital role in human bodies. Thanks.
Thank you. Is it Tanisha Doyle? Is that right? Tisha? Okay. Floor is yours.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Tisha Doyle, and I moved here 2 years ago from Ohio. I am the poster child for what this program can do for people. I came here as a medical refugee. I had a big career with the public health department out in Phoenix, Arizona, running their HIV clinic, and I got injured in a car accident. I now have the opportunity, after a decade of not working, to be back to work using cannabis in the cannabis industry, if this cannabis industry is allowed to be robust in this state. I brought my economy, my own personal economy here to Michigan. So I would encourage you to look at people like me and know that there are people like this that are coming from other states that are going to grow this state into a better, happier place for people with illnesses like mine. I just really think about those things when you're making your rules. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Well, we appreciate you all coming. I will tell you, and I'm going to let the other members of the board speak as well if they want to. We're not waiting till October to meet again. I don't want no applause for anything. We are really just at the beginning of what we're trying to do, what we're trying to put together here. And it is our intention to be able to figure out what's the best way. There's a lot of work that's ahead. I believe these people that are sitting here are ready to go in that direction. I do believe there's a lot of good things that can come out of this. I've seen it personally. There will be rules, there will be fees, but we don't know what them are yet today. We'll somehow figure that out and get it figured out, which is the best way to go. I would encourage you to talk to your congressmen, because as you know, marijuana today is a level 1, Schedule 1 narcotic in the eyes of the feds. And there was banking issues talked about today, several other issues talked about. And until that is kind of fixed there, that handicaps what we can do here as well. So with that, I'm going to let anybody else on the board that might want to say something. We will try to find a bigger room for the next meeting.
I just want to make one quick comment. I think that people came in today reading resumes and reading biographies of people and made assumptions. And I think that you do need to understand that today is day one. And so you can read my bio, you can read that I'm a pharmacist, you can make every accusation, but I have proved myself outside of my resume that I work for the state of Michigan and I work for our good people and our good state. So I hope that just like we have to not have bias toward the situation, that you'll look at that with an open mind too, and that we will work together because we do live in a great state, and we want to protect the people, all of the people of the state of Michigan, not just cannabis growers, not just medical people. So there was a lot of comments made and a lot of I felt at times even unprofessional because I'm not making an assumption of anybody else walking up to the microphone. So we do want to work together. This is day one. the 5 of us are just meeting together. We're just working together. We didn't determine when we got appointed or the timeline, but you need to know that we will work for you and that we are understanding that the timeline needed to start December 20th and we're moving forward. So if we can all work together, I think that it'll be for the greater good. So that's my comment. I've sat here for a long time, but I want you to know that we're all in this together.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I just want to kind of dovetail into what was just said. I have no preconceived notions or biases regarding this issue, and I appreciate the level of passion in the room. As the one attorney pointed out, public service is our highest calling, so that's why I'm here. I'm a father, grandfather, and the public safety is very important to me. So I look forward to this process and hearing everything that you guys have to say.
Good afternoon, everyone. I just want to say thank you for all of the comments this afternoon. I think for all of us on the board here, it adds some of the ones that were negative, some of the ones that were positive. We're taking all of those in, and for me, they were all very, very helpful to have me think about all sides of the issue. So I want to thank you again for allowing us to hear those comments. And of course, keep them coming because you always bring up, you're out there in the field working, and you may think of issues that we may not have thought about. So again, I think we would all be appreciative if you continue to provide us with that dialogue at the issues, identifying issues out there. Thank you very much.
I'm Don Bailey. I retired from the state police, and there's been some comments about me. Some of you may know, at least of me. We're frustrated with the timeline as well. We want to move this along. We understand that December 15th is coming very, very quickly. We understand that there will probably be a big crush on December 15th when these applications come in. A couple comments were made about the law enforcement and their involvement in marijuana. And I think it's extremely necessary that they be very involved. In the last month, we've had 2 BHO lab explosions. They've all been in the paper. You may not have seen them. One of them have 2 children that remain, one of them out of state, in a critical care burn unit because he was in the room when the BHO explosion occurred. That's the type of thing that's going on. That's the type of thing that we have to guard against. Those in the southwest corner of the state may have read or seen that there were 2 young men killed yesterday in a marijuana deal that went bad down in Knoxville, Tennessee. They were selling high-grade marijuana from Michigan in Tennessee. It went terribly wrong. 3 people shot, 2 Michigan young men were killed. It is a law enforcement issue. We do have to keep that front and center. There's a lot of diversion. Other states that have legal marijuana, recreational and medical, there's a lot of diversion that goes on to other states. That's happening in Michigan. Michigan is a source state for many states in the Midwest. 2 weeks ago, 2 pounds of wax was interdicted going to Colorado. And we're going to find out where that came from. We don't know. I don't know. I'm retired, so I'm not involved in that. 2 pounds of butter was going to Colorado from Michigan. That's a problem for us, and it's going to be a problem going forward. Right now, none of the extracts are legal. None of the dispensaries are legal under state law. It's black and white. With the Supreme Court making a final ruling 2 weeks ago, that's a done deal. So anything that's open right now isn't legal. Going forward, there's going to be a new law. They are going to be legal. But if you've demonstrated in the past that you're not going to abide by the law that we did have, why do we think, it's a rhetorical question, going forward, you would abide by the new law? That's all I have. Thank you.
Anyone else here? All right, we need one thing to follow up here on number 6, approval of the meeting schedule. I think, Dave, you have a motion for that?
Chairman, for the purpose of procedural activities here, I move that we approve this schedule with the understanding that there will be at least one, if not more than one, meeting between June and October.
Support that. Any comments on that from the board here? Okay, appreciate that, Dave. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And motion carries. With that, the first meeting of the Medical Marijuana Licensing Board is going to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, sorry.
I apologize. We needed one more motion from the board to designate the department to post the official notices of the board meetings.
Someone want to make that motion?
Yeah, I can make that motion. Motion that we will make sure that we have on the website, or that we are clearly going to talk. The next meeting will be posted.
Support?
Support.
It's been moved and supported to instruct the department to post the meetings as necessary. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. And we are adjourned.